Hi, I'm JJ Conway, and I help hardworking women and a few good men build financial confidence and take ownership of their financial future. I'm cheering you on with education on financial literacy, smart investments, and passive income streams. Welcome to Ladies of Wealth. Hi, everybody, again. If you're just joining us, it's JJ Conway. We are talking about our time-tested success strategies for entrepreneurs, business leaders, speakers, and even moms. It's been so much fun just reaching out to new people from all over the world. I have enjoyed these lessons. I have enjoyed getting to see the same old familiar faces as well. I appreciate those of you who are joining me this evening or whatever time it is when you're listening to this lesson. Your time is your most precious resource, and I am honored and humbled. I am honored and humbled that you're spending it with me and this tribe. So now, if you're listening to me as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast, I want to encourage you to join us live Thursday nights. We have our class every Thursday night, and the first, second, third, and fourth are live classes. Our fifth week is a wild card, and next week, y'all, if you're just joining us and you missed the opening announcement, we have a special guest, HG Tudor. He and I will be talking about why high-earning women fall prey to narcissists. It's so good, okay? For today's topic, this is one of those powerful concepts that will help you double your effectiveness in life and in your money. It's not that these kinds of classes are crystal balls, like, oh, here's what I know will happen next quarter, because I don't have that prophetic ability, right? But what I do know is that there are specific skills, behaviors, attitudes that you can put into place today that will allow you to succeed no matter what life throws at you. And so if this is something that intrigues you and you haven't already, make sure you navigate to jjclink.com/TTSS so that you can get the rest of the series. It's just fantastic. All right. In the first part of tonight's broadcast, we talked about how traumas, insecurities, frustrations, they can all tie up the random access memory of our brain. I know that's not the real official neurological technical term, right? But it's just the analogy that I'm making of our brains to the computers that we have on our desks. It's like our brain has so many of these programs operating in the background that we can't do what we need to do. We veg out, we stare at the computer, we fall asleep, we hit snooze instead of hitting the gym. Ooh, yeah. And so one of the first things to go when our brains get stuck in these loops is our ability to see the future. So today's principle is that your job as the entrepreneur is to see the future. I mean, it really is. And it's funny because as we go through each of these strategies, it feels like each time I go through a strategy, it's like I'm saying, like, your job as the entrepreneur is to be this, and your job as the entrepreneur is to be that. Well, the empowered entrepreneur, you got a lot of jobs. Your job is to make the best decision and to implement the thing. That's your job. And if you're the entrepreneur, who else is going to do it, right? So now you might have heard me teach on the idea that we think from one of three perspectives. So at any given time, our thinking is from the perspective of the historian, the reporter, or the futurist. And so when we're looking at a challenge, when we're looking at an opportunity, we can put on our thinking cap from historian, where we reference all of our stored data, knowledge, and experience, and we can let that thinking of the past influence, to a great degree, the decisions and action steps that we're going to take right now. Another perspective that we can have is the perspective of the reporter. So when there's an opportunity or a challenge right in front of us, we can play the reporter, and the reporter is looking at the facts as they are right now. This is what we see right now. This is what's going on the ground. I'm JJ Conway, and I'm on the ground reporting on Conway Financial Group, right? These are the conditions and circumstances right now. And all of our thinking and decision-making can be driven from the conditions and circumstances. So it's outside-in thinking, if you think about it, from the outside in. But we're not supposed to be driven from conditions and circumstances. As the entrepreneur, our role is to be the futurist. And that's why you have to join masterminds and groups and be connected, because your job is to be looking into this new emerging future. Your job is to predict what is evolving and elevate your business, your self-image even. So where you can see you taking your place in it, what's coming next and where are we going and how can I find my role in it and carve out my niche to make my profit. And as you face a challenge or a problem, you look towards the future and say, what do I want to have? What do we need to do? And where do we need to be? You build a mental model of perfection in the future of what it is you want. And then you begin to build into that right now. And that's really where I think the money is for most of us here today, right? Like in every aspect, I put money in quotes, right? It's not just money, but that fuller, richer life. Your life is when you're looking beyond the conditions and circumstances as they are right now, and you're looking at where you're called to go according to your purpose, your values, your goals. It's not enough for us to be the futurist when it comes to delivering our products and services. We need to be the futurist in every area of our business and our lives. You got to be the futurist when it comes to looking at your supply chain, the futurist when it comes to your logistics. You need to be the futurist when it comes to looking at expanding government regulations or contracting government regulations. I mean, think about it, right? You think there's going to be some new government regulations coming up, right? So what do you see as the future in that in your particular business? Are you ready for it? Are you putting things in motion right now? We have to be the futurist. We have to be the futurist when it comes to finding and retaining talent. We need to be the futurist when it comes to trends in our market, or even more important, the trends that your client's marketplace has. Now, one of the best things about being a financial planner and financial coach is that it gives me an opportunity to learn so much about all these other kinds of industries and businesses. My clients come from all walks of life. My clients come from all walks of life, from retirees on fixed income to TV celebrities. And over time, what's helped me to learn about their business cycles and their processes, because every business has a cycle, right? Not just the overall stock market or economy, but every business. Flooring, hairdressing, car sales, everything has a cycle. And so I've been able over the years to learn their unique needs, what were their challenges, what were their problems. And that's why I mentor and coach people. I have a pretty good understanding of the fundamentals of most businesses. And I have to know that because that impacts my business, right? So coaching, for those of you who don't know the difference between coaching and mentoring, let me just throw that in there for a second. Coaching is really drawing out of the individual the answers that are already within them. Okay. And so I don't need to know their business to be a good coach. I need to be good at listening, and I need to be good at getting them to feel comfortable enough to tell me the answers that are deep inside that they haven't even acknowledged yet. That's what makes an amazing coach. Okay. I don't have to know how to, I don't know how to lay, I have to know how to lay flooring. I don't need to know the business cycle for hairstylists. I don't need to know any of that to be a good coach. But mentoring is where you're shortening the learning curve for somebody else. And in order to mentor someone, you really do need to understand the learning curve so you can help shorten it for the person that you're working with. Okay. To develop the most solid financial plan for them, I need to understand a little bit about their business. I need to understand enough of the ups and downs and the major players and sometimes the trends. Okay. So many of you who've been with me for years, you've noticed that my real estate classes are focusing more and more on getting you into a cash position and preparing you to take advantage of what economists are projecting in the real estate landscape. Paul Martinelli, who helped me actually originally write a lot of these courses that I teach you all, He tells a story of back in 2000, year 2000, when he owned it. Wow, it's 2025, and I still feel like we just hit. I feel like we just had. I feel like we just had the 1999. What was that? What was that called? That big scare. We were all worried that when it turned 2000, we were going to ruin all of our computer chips. I forget what that was called. Y2K. Anyway. Paul Martinelli tells a story of back in 2000 when he owned a cleaning company and there was an earthquake in Taiwan. And one of his clients made coatings for the space shuttle. They made coatings that would go over microchips, and Taiwan is where all these guys were getting the chips at the time. So if you think strategically, there's an earthquake in Taiwan, and that's going to be a major disruption to their supply chain. And so he called them and renegotiated a reduced service package even before it had registered to them, rather than waiting a week or two when they started to feel the pain of not having supply and then fire him. Okay, so this goes back to one of the other strategies we've talked about negotiating your best deal now. It's important for us to think as the futurist in our business, and we can also understand that it's important to be the futurist in our health. It's important to be the futurist in our relationships. It's important to be the futurist in all of these things. I've told the story. I've told the story a couple times. I don't know if I've told it publicly, but I know I've told it a couple times around here. One day my son came home and he said, "Mom, you're the same age as everybody else's grandma." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I had you a little later in life. You're an unexpected blessing. I'm so happy to have you." And he was like, "Well, they're all dying. And I don't want you to die." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'll be here a long time for you. I'm going to be here at least until you're 50 without missing a beat," because this kid is just that smart. He said, "Well, if you're here till I'm 50, that means you'll be 90. He said, "I don't think you're going to make it that far." And I said, "Well, honey, that's why I work out almost every day and I try my best to eat clean, because I want to be here for you well into my 90s. And so I can be the futurist and say, okay, what I've been doing with my body hasn't been working the way I want it to work. And if I want to have a future goal, I have to work towards that future goal. I can't just give up today because maybe I can't find what I want in the store, or maybe I can't eat how I want, or maybe I'm tired of cooking 2 meals for the family. I have a future goal. So we can be a futurist in that. We can be a futurist in our relationships. If we don't nurture our relationships, they fall apart. Okay. And so we want to be the futurist in many areas. We are specifically talking today about things that are income increasing strategies. So we are talking about your business, but please understand that these principles apply in almost every area of your life. So it's not just, it's also not just understanding the physical changes that the future brings. We also have to be futurists of the new attitudes that the future is bringing. Okay, so if you look at the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you would have told me that there would be a revolt in the United States and our attitude around oil and energy independence, I would have told you that you were crazy. Okay. Now, I was a little young for this, but I remember my parents talking about it. How many of us remember the 1970s when Jimmy Carter was president, right? How many of us remember? Now, this is something and I don't know if anybody, I think they thought I was so young, I didn't understand this, but how many of you remember changing license plates on your car because you had to get gas because the gas was rationed, right? Even when I was younger, I remember on base, my parents had gas ration cards, right? You had the ration cards, and so that 2-hour drive to France better be worth it, because that was like your gas for 2 weeks, And then all of a sudden they came out with fracking, right? Let me make sure you didn't hear what I didn't say. Fracking. And now all of a sudden the United States becomes the biggest oil country in the world, right? And so that was a big physical change. But then came the cultural attitude change against oil and the danger that this new way of producing oil brings to the environment, or has the potential to bring to the environment. Now, and for the purposes of this discussion, it does not matter whether you agree with it or disagree with it. Okay, that's not what matters. What matters is you better be aware to the sensitivity of the attitude that the structural change brings, or you're going to be tone deaf. And even in my life, even as a person of color, there have been times in my life where I have been tone deaf and didn't even realize it. Okay. I remember it was maybe so I was stationed at Fort Belvoir. So that was at least 10 years ago. And I had an incident where someone was racist towards me. And I made a comment online about the racism. And then I said, this is something that I said. I said, it probably, she's probably, she's Oriental. She's probably from some small village where they don't look people in the eye, and she got married a GI and got brought over here. I had no idea 10 years ago that people are Asian and things are Oriental. I had no idea, because everywhere you were, people talked about Asian people calling them Oriental. And it's funny because after that happened, I began to see it everywhere. And I was like, oh, I'm very thankful for the person who brought it up, who brought it up in public. Now, they might have brought it up privately, but I don't think they liked me very much. But I'm still appreciative of the fact that they brought it up, because I don't want to be tone deaf. And sometimes we're brought up with things, we don't realize the things that have changed. We don't realize the attitudes that have changed. And please don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying we pander to things that we disagree with, but if it's offensive to call somebody something and I have a better word, I'm going to choose the better word, and that's super important to most of the young talent that I come in contact with these days. One of the things that encourages young people, one of the things that they care about is how the people they do business with impact the environment. And if you're not aware of that and you're trying to hire young talent without understanding that sensitivity, well, then you're at a disadvantage. You got to understand what's going on in the world. You simply have to understand and be curious about what the future holds. Again, this has nothing to do with whether you agree with it or not. It's about making sure you're aware of the attitudes that the future is going to usher in. And then you have to be dialed in to this new kind of frequency of thinking, or you get left behind. Okay. Think about the changes that have occurred right under our nose as we've gotten into the world. Okay. Amazon has taken over retail. No doubt about it. They don't own a store. They don't even make a product. Uber has taken over transportation. Uber and Lyft and the rideshare bikes. They don't own a vehicle. Apple and Spotify have taken over the music industry, and they don't represent one artist or even produce music. Okay. So if you look at Airbnb, they still have more people sleeping in Airbnb every night than all these other hotel chains in the world combined. They don't even own any of the rooms. Netflix has taken over TVs and movies, and they don't own a traditional network. And now they've done movies to their platform, but they've never released a movie to the silver screen, right? Google's taken over data. LinkedIn's taken over job search and hiring. Expedia, TripAdvisor took over the travel agency. The list goes on and on. And if you're my age or older, you can think back, the internet just came out like 29, 30 years ago. We grew up without internet. We grew up without smartphones. We grew up running around and climbing trees and doing stuff. Just think of how the world has changed so much in just our lifetimes. I want you to think about something. Think about some of the companies we're familiar with. Now, if you're my son's age or younger, what I'm about to say probably doesn't apply to you. Okay, so just hang with me, all right? Just hang with me. We'll get there, all right? But if you're my age or older, probably familiar with the closing of places like Sears, JCPenney, Kmart, Best Buy, Macy's, right? But did you know that right before COVID, 390 Family Dollar stores were scheduled to be closed? 650 Dress Barn stores were scheduled to be closed before COVID. 2,100 Payless stores were closing before COVID. The Gap was shutting down 230 stores. Walgreens was shutting down 200 stores. Pier 1 was going to close 145 stores. Walmart was going to, it's not much, but it's Walmart, 17 stores. All of that planned before COVID-19. So let me ask you something. Do you really think that much changed? Think about that. That's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people's jobs that were about to be gone. And of all the places that service those people and those companies would also be gone. Do you really think that much change happens and your world is going to stay the same? I mean, do you really think that this level of change is going to happen and your company or your business or your industry isn't going to feel that at some level? That with all of the structural changes, you really think you're not going to have to change anything about how you do business? Even while we were recovering for COVID or not, did we really think we weren't going to have to make changes? What happened to the businesses who thought, oh, this will blow over quickly and didn't make changes? I want you to think about this. We're going to dig into an example that's kind of personal to me because my dad was a truck driver, an over-the-road truck driver. This is just the tip of the iceberg. 3.5 million truck drivers in America, okay? And truck driving is the most popular job in more than half of the United States. 29 states in all, truck driving is the most popular. Now, my dad, who passed away about 5.5 years ago, he was a truck driver. And so I really paid attention when I heard stats like this, okay? Today, the technology to completely replace 90% of those jobs already exists. The technology to get rid of 90% of those already exists. Self-driving trucks are already making successful deliveries. They've been doing it in Nevada and Colorado since 2015. Okay, that was 10 years ago. A mining company in Australia, Rio Tinto, has 73 autonomous trucks hauling iron ore 24 hours a day, and they've been doing it for years. The U.S. Postal Service started testing self-driving trucks on a 1,000-mile run between Phoenix and Dallas a couple years ago. Wired magazine a couple years ago, 2001, I think it was, 2002, had a cover story called Self-Driving Trucks Ready to Do Business in Texas. But they first reported on those trucks being tested in 2017. Now look, rolling out these changes may take some time, but self-driving trucks are going to be here long before self-driving cars are, and the economic incentive for self-driving trucks is already here. Think of the cost savings and the insurance savings. Do you really think that this level of structural change in just that one industry isn't going to impact our families? Do you really think that at that level, that kind of change isn't going to change our business or our industry? I mean, for some people, it's going to be a windfall for sure. But for other people, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a nightmare. So in the way you're thinking right now and the way you inform yourself right now and the adjustments you make towards this emerging future, all of that is going to have a huge impact on the difference between this being a windfall for your company or this being a disaster for your company, for your business, for your industry. Many Walmarts have been installing these kiosks, right? You place your order online, you go to the kiosk, scan your phone, out comes your order, right? Or it unlocks a locker with your order and you grab it and you go. And if everything goes well, you don't even have to talk to an employee. They don't even have to talk to you. And so the one that I've interacted with before I moved away from Louisiana, the one in North Bossier, was troublesome from day one, y'all. So I saw a lot of the manager who would come over to fix it. And one day I mentioned him. You do realize the shifted employment will come when these things get up and running with high reliability, right? How are you preparing your team so they don't lose their jobs? And I'm just, I'm a financial person. I'm always trying to uplift people. When I see somebody that looks like my son, I want them to succeed. So I brought this up, and this guy was like, he thought nothing was going to change because the machine was always breaking. And he even got upset with me for suggesting that now was the time to be strategically thinking about it. And I reminded him, McDonald's and other fast food places, you place your order at the kiosk now, not at the counter. You pay at the kiosk. So these are entry-level jobs that are disappearing. And I know some of you listening may not care because it's been a while since you worked an entry-level job. But one of the things I do is I empower and uplift my community. And one of the ways I do that is by helping people find employment so they can take charge of their money and win. And so I have that same conversation with every manager after that who helped me with that devilish machine, because I kept ordering online rather than, toting a crying strong-willed toddler through the store, right? And so I would order online and I would think this is the day that thing's going to work. And then it would be here forever with the managers, right? Out of all the managers that I spoke to at that location over the course of maybe about 6 to 8 months, only one leaned over to me and whispered, "Oh, I got a plan. This ain't my job forever. They trying to fix it so none of us can work, but they got a free Google class I'm about to take." Now, I know the lady who brought that Google class to Shreveport. I'm so thankful she did, you know. But can you see what's going to happen in the future? And when you see what's going to happen in the future, can you find stuff in your market? Can you find the free class? Can you find the certification? Can you find whatever it is that you're going to need to take things to the next level? Right? See, people need to look at what's coming and prepare themselves. The Bible says that the wise see trouble brewing. The Bible says the wise see trouble brewing and they take action, but the simple just keep on going and get punished. Okay. Now some of you might say, well, hold it now. I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. How does that impact me? It impacts your business. Trust me. You can't have that much structural change and it not impact your business. Okay. You cannot afford to not prepare yourself for what's coming down the pike by developing your ability to see what's coming and adjust your goals, plans, and self-image so that you stay on top of it rather than reacting after the fact. Every business now is a global business. Let's go back. Let's rewind the clock back to 2019. If someone would have asked you, hey, would what happens in Wuhan, China, would that ever impact your business? You'd be like, Wuhan, what? Where's that? Like, you wouldn't even know it. Like, if I asked you if something's going on over there that it would impact you, you'd be like, no, that doesn't bother me. That's all on them. But how long did it take something from Wuhan, China to go around the world and shut the entire world down? And so if you think about it, that's just how fast the virus travels, but that's also how fast the programming in our mind travels too. That's how ideas travel. That's how scarcity travels. That's how fear travels. That's how breakdown travels. All of it just travels that way. Opportunity travels. Y'all, it travels that fast. And so you better believe that what could happen in some random place in China could affect you in Kalamazoo, Michigan, right? And so you may not be fully aware of everything that's going on, but if you'll begin to look, if you'll invest a little bit of time and really understand that your job as the entrepreneur is to be the futurist, is to think of what could the future hold and how's it going to be? It's up to you. You don't want to be on the cutting edge of technology. You want to be on the bleeding edge of technology, right? The bleeding edge of technology. You want to be ahead of the game. You don't want to be the one stepping behind trying to figure it out. You want to be right on the front lines, implementing and trying right now. You want to be forward thinking. Okay? I think about the year that my dad passed away. Those of you who have completed either one or both of the courses, so like you were either the course that you'd either been in the course the year before or the course that I was teaching when my father died, and the course that normally would have followed it, and you would see the difference. And if you were able, if you took the courses, you were able to adapt your business. You had so sorry, we're taking I don't want to say it the wrong way, but take advantage of the COVID situation to build up your family, start a business, take online classes, launch businesses, write books. We didn't know what was coming, right? We didn't know what was coming. How many of y'all, I don't know how many of y'all who are on were with me back then, but my early Facebook videos, they had good messages, but they really weren't good videos at all. and I had to work, so I didn't get to binge on Netflix like a lot of people did. I was on the COVID Tiger team. I still took advantage of everything shutting down, though, to build memories with my family, spend more time with my boys, draw closer to my husband. And I launched that COVID financial survival series. We did another run of the self-image class, the leading through adversity class, the turning adversity into an advantage. Like, I wasn't even planning on any of those classes last year, but they were what the marketplace needed. The marketplace needed the Mint for More mastermind. And if you went through that with me, you reaped the harvest. You had the benefit of all the groundwork that you laid back then 5 years ago, and it's blooming into fruit and a plentiful harvest today. And I wasn't even that good. I wasn't even any good, but just like in the last lesson on Good, Better, Best, I got out there. My mentors provided us with content. I was first to the market. I captured a huge part of the market share compared to what I had previously. And I didn't even sell anything for 6 months. Y'all remember that? I didn't even sell anything for 6 months. I didn't sell anything during the height of COVID. And when we came out of COVID, that was my highest grossing business month since my divorce. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. You can't go back from it. There's people all over the world who have realized that Zoom and Facebook Live is a great way to communicate. And the people who didn't want to do it before, well, if they didn't get with the program, they're falling behind, And so all of our kids were on Zoom. Everybody was on Zoom. And you would think today, well, we're all used to it now, right? Well, many of us are used to it, but people still dug their heels in. And now with all the AI and everything coming out, we've got to be the futurists. We've got to look at what's coming for the future as best as we can. It's going to be relevant. It doesn't mean you have to become an expert in every brand new technology or super cool thing that comes out, but you have to be the future of your business. Your team, your product, your service, your clients depend on it. Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and ask your question at ladiesofwealth.com.